This is Dateline News and Conversation. My guest tonight, he's returning. He's become a favorite of mine, Blaz Kavcic. I know I didn't do that right. Nevertheless, he's an economist. He's coming to us from Slovenia. He's an author and he's an activist and a former politician. Blaz, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Regis. Nice talking to you. I think this is our fourth discussion based on the structure proposed in our book, How We Will Survive and Thrive, Leaving Predatory Globalism for Sovereign Humanism. So far, Regis, we have presented our views on what is going on, what is really going on, what are the causes of the conditions in which we live, we work, suffer, thrive. What are the consequences? Where the things are leading? What are the megatrends? Now, a final chapter of the book deals with the question of what we want and how we are going to achieve it. So we are dealing with basically common sense approach. Let's find out what is going on, what is good for us, what is bad for us, what is our basic view on how society should work. Are the forces that manage our societies going to solve the problems in a way better for us or not? The whole approach is not about writing an academically elegant, attractive, charming bestseller. There is abundance of those around. It is about quality and perspectives of our lives, here and now. Regis, as you have suggested, we will first connect the approach of the book with some most important current events. Would that be okay?
Absolutely. And I would like to add something before you begin. A very good friend of mine has said to me repeatedly, why do you keep repeating the same kinds of things? Maybe with different people, but you keep repeating the same kinds of things. And my response, Blaz, is this. The opposition, the other side, have been bombarding us 24/7 with the same stories, the same narrative, the same lie over and over and over again. And that's how propaganda works, and that's how advertising works. So, in my opinion, and my answer to this is why am I dealing with these same kinds of things over and over? It's because one and done does not sink in by most people who watch my show or any other shows. And so I'm very happy to continue this conversation with you about your book, about your research, which I believe is critically important for people to understand. We're going to promote your book again, but tonight we're going to talk about how to survive and thrive, leaving predatory globalism for sovereign humanism. I have to tell you the truth, Blaz. When I read that initially, and when I read your book, this is the thing that appealed to me the most. Given everything that's happening, connecting all the dots, how to survive and thrive. I turn it back to you to continue the discussion.
Thank you, Regis. It is exactly what you have described now is exactly what we are discussing in a closer circle of friends, because like you noticed, we are coming back to square one, but always we have to see that if we want to talk about the solutions, we have to agree on what is really going on. And we will discuss today some current events, which, well, where I will try to demonstrate that even the best among us, the best, let's say, free, independent commentators are not really clear on what is really going on. So we have to come and to return and to refresh our findings and proposals and analysis with new events. So if we look at the current events, which you were mentioning in when we were preparing for the show tonight, if we look at the current events through the lens of multidisciplinary approach of our book, we get the feeling that even some of the best thinkers outside the mainstream are ignoring the obvious. So the problem which I encounter when I listen to our friends, let's say, there are many, and they are very professional in certain fields, but they, for some reason, ignore the obvious. And I will explain what I mean with this assessment. For example, when discussing the wall initiative of Trump and his consortes, we should recognize that building a wall to protect citizens of United States against the immigration is just another scam. The main cause of immigration are the imperial wars initiated and conducted by the United States handlers. Immigration should be prevented by not happening. Allowing normal functioning of Latin America states, their economies and societies would eliminate refugee flows. And it applies globally. Investing in United States or Mexico wall or Israel-Palestine wall are investments against the people and for the benefit of corrupt corporations. Now here we are dealing with some elephants in the room, and some of them were well exposed on your channel, like for instance Jeffrey Sachs. But Tucker Carlson was probably dealt with rather gently. Why? Tucker is one of the most visible personalities in the media and does not deserve too much tolerance. He's important and he's good. Certainly, we cannot tolerate ignoring the main facts and him remaining within the four dogmas we were discussing in detail so far. And Tucker still talks about democracy as if it was existing. He does not scrutinize the monetary plundering of the people, or Rockefeller medical doctrine, or the CO2 scam, the most important things. He excellently and very dramatically exposes some issues, like lies of politicians. He even confessed and regretted his own mainstream commenting of Iraq war, but he fails to address the systemic causes. So if it's okay, Regis, I would go now to saying few basic ideas of mine on the questions you have raised, like BRICS. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think some of the topics that we're going to discuss and you're going to articulate about are extremely important for people to connect with the root causes of what is happening in our world. Take it away.
So most of us probably would like to see BRICS as alternative. The question is, alternative to what? And we have to be precise here. Pax Americana, American empire, is overextended, and like all empires, starts to go down. Brute force, financial control, corruption is keeping it on the top. I think it is important to understand what is behind the curtains of American empire. And consequently, is the BRICS alternative to that background. There is a force behind the empire, even using the empire as a tool. Most people would probably agree that the force of American empire is not working for the benefit of the majority of American citizens. But there is too much simplified criticizing of America today all around, and too little awareness of the background. There are historical facts we should consider here. The globalist controlling networks have staged World War I to prevent Germans and French build a robust railroad connection Berlin-Baghdad and Eurasian cooperation. This was a war staged among three royal cousins, the British, the German, and the Russian. Financing of World War I and involvement of America would not have been possible without privatization of Federal Reserve, in 1913, and sinking of Titanic a year before. And this made privatization of Fed possible. I don't think we have time to talk about Titanic sinking too much today, but this is a very important and crucial change of history. What is important is that there were more than 120 million people killed from 1914 to 1945, which means before the beginning of the First World War and at the end of Second World War, and billions of lives destroyed, wealth of citizens plundered. Why? Who won? Who lost? Wars do not start because of ordinary people quarreling. Wars are systemic projects of powers. Wars are not meant to be won, but meant to be permanent. This is a statement taken from George Orwell, by the way. So we have to ask ourselves, is BRICS an alternative to globalist powers creating wars and destruction, or just lesser of two evils? There was a strong movement of non-aligned countries after World War II, with strong national leaders like Josip Broz Tito from Yugoslavia, Nasser from Egypt, Nehru from India, and many others. This movement was gradually infiltrated, corrupted, and morphed in neo-colonial setup, a collaboration of globalist powers and national oligarchies. This transformation has not gone away. So we can only hope that BRICS countries will once declare their departure from Agenda 2030. So far, the opposite is happening.
Do you see the BRICS movement, which now is gaining in traction and speed? New members were just added, surprisingly, And Russia now, this year, is the chair of the BRICS movement. They will meet, I think, in October in Kazan. And without doubt, more countries have applied and will be accepted into BRICS. Do you see this as a major tectonic shift, a major geopolitical shift in what we're seeing now with Pax Americana?
Well, I share good hopes with you. I remain skeptical. Some members are joining, some are going out, like Argentina, for instance. But the main question is, like I said before, are BRICS countries going to reject the globalist agenda 2030, which is now not the case? If BRICS countries accept concretely what does it mean, if they accept continuation of involving of digital identities, of transhumanism, of technocracy, of creating one world government, of course, it's more closer to the Orwellian concept of super states, as he wrote. George Orwell did not write about one world government. He wrote about the project of establishing permanently warring super states, and we are now closer to this arrangement than any other. So it is very important, and things are not black and white. There are a lot of positive signs also, which we will maybe talk about. But so far, the main countries like Russia, China, and India, they are very intensively involving the globalist technologies, which, of course, is not alternative to globalism and not alternative to American empire, but just continuing the same problems in a different organizational setup. So we remain helpful. There are some positive signs, but I would not be overly optimistic.
Well, that's very interesting. And I think it is good to be tempered here and to be balanced. How does this fit in with the BRICS movement? And independent of the BRICS movement, Russia, China, India, and other countries now beginning to trade in their own currencies. In other words, the movement to de-dollarize, the de-dollarization of the petrodollar. How do you see that as an economist happening?
Yeah, we write about these things in the book, and we should, it seems, every now and then return to these basic ideas. What is money? Money does not create values, not national money and not global currency. And we have to be aware of the economic fact that any global currency is a tool for plundering the citizens of the world. On international and global level, we need what we really need, and what has been functioning in the past and is partially functioning now, is a clearing arrangement. So this is a clearing arrangement, and it is encouraging that some thinking like that has been elaborated within BRICS. So no currency alone can create purchasing power. Only national creation of value creates a strong national currency. So the basic question here is about the money and dollar and de-dollarization, is that we have to look at the monetary question in close relation to the governance of national states. if we do not have a sound national economy in one state and in a group of states, we cannot hope that any solution above the national level will bring positive solutions back to the countries. So first, like Russia should abolish its dependence on the World Bank and strengthen its currency in all technical forms, from paper to digital, but do not allow the projects like universal basic income and digital identity and so on in connection with programmable money to go on. So first basis of a sound international cooperation for tomorrow is sound national economies with independent sovereign national currencies.
Okay, you mentioned Russia. I live in Russia. We'll talk about the Russian economy, how it has not suffered because of sanctions and this war in Ukraine. In fact, it has stabilized and it is even growing. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about Russian economic policy and what's happening here. The ruble has been stabilized, I believe, but I'd like your opinion on that. The Russian economy is, according to Putin and others, has become self-sustaining. It does not need very much from the outside world, certainly the West, which they've turned away from. They've moved east. I'm wondering what it means that Russia is still, and its central bank is connected with the World Bank. I would like some understanding about that, because I do not understand how the two things fit. On the one hand, moving away from global currency and Russia trading in the ruble, the yuan, the renminbi, and with other national currencies, and a World Bank. Can you explain that for me?
I don't think anybody can explain, because it does not fit together. You are absolutely right, Regis. These things are incompatible. So this is what I was talking about. But maybe before I express my opinions on Russian economy, say a few words about the European Union, because this is the starting position. It's now tightly connected with the Russian situation. Already in 2011, I have prepared a strategic paper which was adopted by the second chamber of Slovenian parliament, addressed to the European Parliament, and this document proposed that the quality of life of citizens of European Union should become the strategic goal, and that European Union as such and Euro should be understood only as a means to achieve this goal. Otherwise, we wrote back then, European Union and Euro will collapse. And today, European Union is a super fascist entity and cannot be reorganized to serve us, the citizens, unfortunately. But I have just yesterday, I think, heard a discussion from the States where similar ideas are strengthening in the US. They call this secession ideas of federal states of United States of America. And my opinion is that like European Union mafia on the top, similarly, the Beltway mafia cannot be improved. It should be removed. So if I continue to explain my views on the Russian economy, well, I mean, it became clear that Russia has turned inwards and was motivated to use own resources, which are vast, and knowledge, and also to develop cooperation with China, India, Turkey, and others. So this has played a very positive role for the Russian economy, which I think is relatively strong, and it has weakened the economies of European Union and United States. But there is a warning I would like to express regarding Russia and China, predominantly Russia. I would call it the phenomenon of which happened in United States after Second World War. And this was the making serial industrial concept of the military industrial complex. If we listen to the news today, we hear how more capacity Russia has in manufacturing grenades and tanks, which is to a certain extent logical and good because Russia is defending itself. But the problem is, which happened in the United States after Second World War, that once this military industry will be established, it will get the life of its own. So the military industrial complex of Russia, once getting stabilized, will be pushing for more sales of weapons. This is the mechanism which actually created the imperial politics, geopolitics of United States. So this is one warning for the Russian strategists, which is already clear also in the neoclassical economy. We all students of numerous generations from economics have studied Samuelson's book Economics, where the starting diagram every student of economics is studying, it is called guns and butter alternative, which shows clearly the different options of national economy, how to allocate available resources, because resources are limited, and now how much of those resources we will invest in guns, and how much of those resources, in a simplified language, we will invest in butter. But all investment in military are sterile. Investment in military are creating very few working places along the line, but they are definitely the products of military industry are used for devastation. So this is also a potential problem for the industry of Russia, which is strongly developing its military industrial complex. Otherwise, Russia is the biggest country in the world, and in more normal circumstances, European states should see as their strategy developing relations with Russia and China, but of course not to manufacture more weapons, but to manufacture more things required for harmonical life of our citizens.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. But in talking about the Russian economy and still being connected to the World Bank and Russia, China, India, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, other country, Iran, looking to get rid of the dollar, I wonder if Russia still being connected to the World Bank, its central bank being connected to the World Bank, is something that is kind of like a lifesaver. You can't quite get rid of it all at once. I mean, I'm just wondering about that. Now, the things that worry me are digital currency. I'm very concerned about giving up my possession of actual rubles and dollars because digital currency is nothing but a switch, a one and a zero. They can turn it off at will. They can turn it off at will. We're already seeing it. We're seeing it. We have colleagues whose bank accounts have been frozen because they speak out against the narrative. And so the digital currency, for me, is very frightening, and I believe that's part of the globalist plan. If you have one currency controlled by a one world government, controlled by a handful of globalists, we now are being relegated to serfs, servants with no power. And when you talk about creation of value, people create value, as you have stated. Money does not create value, people do. And so I'm trying to figure out what really is going on and why, when we see progress in one direction, for example, BRICS nation, de-dollarization, creating their own SWIFT system, creating their own international monetary fund, a lending organization, and we see Russia and I guess China still hanging on to some of the remnants of Pax Americana, the World Bank. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, first, I think that also we have to look at American empire as a tool of the globalist forces, which I have described before. It's like you also have other interlocutors like Dean Henderson and so on, who have very nicely explained how the structures have been developing through hundreds of years, through millennia. I have described just last time from the, let's say, from the beginnings of the First World War until today. So these forces in the background are pulling the strings. And maybe I should add, because one element on how things are funded for Ukraine, sanctions on Russia, and you are asking about the results on European Union and United States. I mean, these questions are commented, very widely commented, but I would like to add one thought to that. Um, Everything is going just fine for the global elite. There is no stupidity, there are no mistakes. What is stupid is concentrating on stupidity of Biden, Johnson, Baerbock, Scholz, von der Leyen, Baltic and Polish leaders. They are excellent performance. The project in the background is running smoothly. People are dying. Depopulation is taking place. People are losing health and wealth. Corrupt elites are making trillions. Military complex is thriving. And no, it's Ukraine is not the center of global corruption. Ukraine is just a more visible spot. Centers of world corruption are Wall Street, investment corporations, City of London, Basel Bank, World Bank, tax havens worldwide. And Regis, these are the structures where Also, Russian and Chinese elites have close links too. And as long as those links are functioning, we are not on the safe side. But as we say, sanctions against Russia have clearly devastated European member states and motivated Russia to employ national resources and strengthen cooperation with China, India, and Turkey. Maybe to add your thought to your thoughts regarding digital currencies. Of course, there is no need for uh, digital currency. We have, for decades, we have had digital transfers of money. We don't need digital money for that if we understand the money correctly. But there was some 20 years of a special project which prepared the grounds, and this was Bitcoin. Bitcoin created a certain culture among people globally, among people who would like to make some money on stock exchange, on speculation, and some computer enthusiasts who were charmed by the idea that by employing your computer's processing power, you are creating uh, bitcoins, mining. This is a very perverse idea. Uh, but like Dutch tulips hundreds of years ago, very attractive because it offers some quick buck to some people who think they are smart. But if you look now from today's perspective, it is clear that mining for bitcoins does not create any new value for society. Those complicated algorithms the computer is solving, and they are which are bringing then these bitcoins, they are nothing else but uh, throwing away energy, destroying environment, and creating some fictitious, artificial value. Bitcoin culture helped involving the CBDC, the central bank digital currency. And then they made a half a step back. They said, no, no, we will not do it. We will make some beautiful local currencies, and we will help you develop your own money in your county, in your community, in your country. We will just help you install it on a blockchain, and everything will be fine. So globalists are employing all the professional knowledge of computer scientists, economists, anthropologists, psychologists to uh, invite people and make them accepting the digital solutions attractive. So this is the real danger. Digital currencies are, of course, devastating for most of the people. They are a very important tool of technocratic and transhumanistic movement, Davos movement. So objecting involvement of digital programmable money is one of the forms of fighting against globalism.
Yeah, this whole thing about Bitcoin is very confusing to me. I've had friends tell me they're buying it. They tell me I should buy it. It's a way to get around the current transfer of money. I've resisted that because I simply don't understand it. And I like having my own money in my own hand. And uh, I think this is all very confusing to most people, including me. Um, Now, I'd like to ask you this. I think we're going through a period of fundamental change in everything that we've been accustomed to in the past. I just get that feeling. And it's not just from the BRICS. And when I look at things from a bird's eye view, a macro view, I see incredible change happening everywhere and on every level. One of the things I'm really concerned about, and I don't like the term climate change because that's very confusing to a lot of people. There are natural cycles in ice age and warm periods of time. I think we're coming into one of those cycles. I believe that. But, Blaz, there's no denying the environmental degradation and destruction that these globalists have caused around the world. I don't care where you look, you have to be absolutely blind to realize that our oceans, our lakes, and our rivers and streams have been polluted. There's no denying this. I mean, there isn't anybody who denies it. When you look at what's happening to the planet, deforestation everywhere, deforestation in the Amazon. When you see mining, open pit mining, when you see fracking in the United States to extract oil from shale at an extremely high price and a devastating effect on the economy, Blaz, we've gone crazy.
No, I wouldn't agree with that. We didn't we didn't go crazy. I mean, they have. So it's very important. Don't get me wrong, but when I listen to commentators saying we have invaded Iraq and we have killed people there and there, we shouldn't use a language like this because ordinary Americans have nothing to do with imperial wars. So let's let's allocate the guilt correctly. Now, what you have described, of course, is a mix of empirical phenomena which we can observe in the world. And yes, the environment is getting devastated. Now, you will remember, Regis, we have devoted some times to the question of megatrends. And this is, let's say, there was a similar discussion some 200 years ago between Godwin, who was English libertarian, more anarchistically oriented thinker, and Robert Malthus, the very well-known eugenicist. And they were debating what are the trends, what are the megatrends, and Malthus, his main observation was that he was, of course, studying mostly Britain then. He said, we have a megatrend of arithmetic production, of arithmetic growth, slow growth of agricultural production, and we have exponential geometrical function of growing population. And he saw the solution to that with wars and with reducing population on all different ways. On the other hand, there was Godwin explaining that no, our technologies will enable us exponential growth of possibilities and so on. So both of them were partially correct and partially wrong. We observe today exponential growth of population in poor countries, which we discussed already. But in other countries, like European, we are observing the so-called learning curve of population, the logistical curve, which means the stable or even reduced growth. So what we need globally and to answer your questions more directly, is we need calming down of the activities. We don't need more stuff. We need less stuff, generally speaking. But this is only possible if we optimize manufacturing processes, if we apply the industrial policies in a way of the frameworks of the national economies. Any globally thinking corporation is a means to destroy the planet. And of course, everybody can see now that oceans are being destroyed by sending all sorts of goods all over the world, also the goods that could be locally produced. And we have gone through the phase where the liberal economists were explaining workers in Europe are too expensive. We have to close down the factories of textile and clothing and industrial items. We have to close down the factories because Chinese are cheaper, or then Philippines are cheaper, and so on. But this is all playing the numbers. If one would calculate the devastation caused to environment, the devastation caused to the social environment, like in Netherlands or Germany or Slovenia, where working places are being closed, and the devastation of the quality of life of Filipinos and the people in Vietnam and so on, who get the jobs, but they are poorly paid, and they die soon. They live they work in very bad conditions. So this only works if these investment corporations have all the control of the processes on the planet. And we are coming again. I mean, you have started our conversation today, Regis, by a thought that we are returning to the same spot. And yes, we are. We are going. We cannot speak of solutions, which is the last chapter of our book, unless we are coming to an agreement about what is really going on. And this going on is bringing some very complicated solutions. Like I'm writing about that in the book in more detail, concretely. We have to eliminate the category which political economists call unearned income. We have to eliminate from participating on the value the income of fire sector, of finance, real estate, and insurance. So this is all artificial value, which does not create new value for the society, but it then has the power of making businesses which destroy the world. Like, for instance, take Starbucks. Mediocre coffee, brand, culture created out of nothing. But it can only work because they have free of charge resources to do anything. Or take Coca-Cola or any other product, any global brand. So what does it concretely mean, these ideas? It means that the countries, national states, will have to optimize all usage of all resources nationally, and then cooperate on international scale in the interests of all the parties involved. We are now, this is more like classical economy approach which brought good results in developing, let's say, Germany. Not that everything would be ideal, but Germany developed with this concept of industrial banking and national economy development. So the national resources have to be used rationally, and by that we also tackle the question of overpopulation in the right way. meaning that each country has to think of all its resources, including population. And some countries have too, uh, too little births, and some countries have too many. Uh, but like a French sociologist explained, Emmanuel Todd, one can impact the growth rate of population by allowing people to come to better living standard and more literacy. It automatically brings down the birth rates. So we cannot avoid, Regis, uh, applying more humanistic and more sovereign principles of governing our societies, and the building blocks of the world are the national states. If we do not regulate the situation in individual national states, state by state, for the benefit of the people, and we can do that, we have enough knowledge and enough resources to do that, then we will not be able to solve the problems which you were discussing previously, devastating the environment, devastating the Amazon forest, and devastating oceans, and so on. This is all exponential growth of financial sector, driving the crazy rhythm of production and destruction. And in this circle, wars are indispensable activity which makes the whole machine running. So wars are not conflicts that would be created because the people got angry at each other. Wars are imperial projects, and that's why only national sovereign states serving their people can be um, can be a productive solution to cope with the problems you were asking me about.
Well, I think you've explained that pretty clearly. I think what it comes down to, and it's what you and I have been talking about now for the last few weeks, it's about um, sovereignty of individual countries, sovereignty of the people in those countries, and it really is all about our humanity. You talk about sovereign humanism, it's about the sovereignty of our humanity. And these forces that we see being employed by the globalists are doing everything to dehumanize us. You mentioned transhumanism. What is coming beyond what we know, who we are as humans? And the digitalization, digital reconnaissance, digital identification, and I think on top of all of this, the reduction of who we are as humans, what makes us humans, to serfs, slaves in a new world order. People don't see, I don't believe, what is really happening to our humanity, what technology has done, technocracy, artificial intelligence. When you look at everything that is captivating the minds of people with how so advanced we are in all of this technology, but what it is really doing is destroying our basic humanity. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, technology is very important, and the Western civilization has been very dynamic throughout the last 500 years. So we should not get unrealistically critical of what was happening. I mean, our lives in many ways today in Europe are much better than the previous generations. The problem is that we have reached a point where technologies are clearly used more and more against the people, against our health, and against environment. There is no absolute truth valid all over the history, all over the world. We have to always be on a search of best solution for appropriate situation. And that is, let's say, a problem with some of the thinkers outside the mainstream who would like to search for some magic formula, some magic truth somewhere in the history with Confucius or with the old Vedic societies or in Tartaria or whatever it is, in Venetians and so on. But this is a mistake because we have to look at solutions dynamically. And we have a lot of good things today in society, and we would like to preserve them. All these anarchistic movements who preach let's go away, out of the system and so on, they don't have an answer. Will you be using electricity, or how will you in a small community think of creating the power plants, the steel plants, the financial system, the universities, which you all need if you want to have electricity from the socket, just for instance. So we are living here and now, and we should organize in individual national states to see what really is written in our constitutions. Most of it is good. Some of it has been manipulated or even deteriorated. But constitution is the main direction of action if we understand the constitution properly. Constitution should not be a tool of the elites. Constitution should be understood as a document among us, the people living here and now in certain environment, defining what we want and defining what we don't want. And we have to go in this direction. Now, maybe some concluding thoughts. There are things happening now in Germany. The farmers are blocking the motorways. I've listened to one of the statement of one of the organizers, and it was very encouraging. I don't want to be overly optimistic after the Canadian truckers and the yellow vests and the Dutch farmers, but I was impressed by a few thoughts from this representative of farmers, because his statement was in a positive way very political. He said, we don't want politicians to tell us how to lead our lives. We put food on your table and we demand different politics. At least this is how I understood him, and I think this is the way to go. I hope this protest will not be instrumentalized like all of them were so far from Tahrir Square on. But I think that the right ideas are starting to come more and more on the surface.